BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, and it's been a rough couple of days, don't get me wrong. I'm super gracious to the amount of new followers. Thank you, hope you stay around. But yeah, a few days without content, and since I'm trying to get the cat out of the bag that are my more complex videos, yesterday I had the bright idea that since June 3rd is National Bicycle Day, why not just talk about Kamen Rider bikes and other rider machines? Yeah, fair warning, I'm kind of late for this, and I'm not sure when this video is coming out, but you will get it before June 12th at least. I know I'm pretty nuanced in my opinions, but sometimes you just gotta appreciate something for the sheer factor of how fun and cool they look on screen. However, I'm not going in order from least favorite to favorite, but in series order because this isn't some objective list of quality. No, this is just, it's cool, and here's why I like it. What to have you type if you all watch the video? Oh, write full throttle in the comments, and let's get racing. First up is Ryuki and Dragon Knight. More so Dragon Knight, and we're going with the Advent Cycles and the Dragon Cycle and the Wind Cycle. The Advent Cycles are okay. I do like the fact that they're machines to help someone get through the mirror worlds and Earth a lot faster. And yes, the ride shooters. Plus, it helps that there's an advantage to them since they act as portals to help them travel anywhere if they have a completed contract with their contract monsters. But they're limited to where the monster drags them in if they don't have one. So they can only travel the mirror world from the same place. But what makes Dragon Knight fun is that with the Advent Cycle, they can be substituted with the motorcycles the riders use on Earth, which they get transformed into new rider-inspired form vehicles, with Kit getting the Dragon Cycle, Len getting the Wing Cycle, but we also have Strike hunting down Drew on his own motorcycle in the mirrors, while Drew's running away in the real world. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the other bikes like the Cho brothers, Drew's, and Case's. And I wish we got to see her ride it with the siren suit on. Plus, I forgot to mention when Drag Raider and Blackwing evolve into Drawn's Ranzer and Dark Raider, they get vehicle modes that they can become in their final events, which is just so damn cool to watch. Next up is Fives, or 555, and while I know they get hate for how ineffective they can be, the Auto Vagine inside Bashar are pretty sick. The former managed to save the latter in time from an attack from the Jet Slinger that was about to blow up Takumi and Kaiza, and using its front wheel as a bullet blaster and shield is wild. And the Bashar also works pretty well as a walking battle mech with its T-point to grapple as long as a missile range. But just look at the Jet Slinger. That thing is filled with missiles. It also doubles as a hover bike. They can beat up riders and Orphanox by just ramming into them or using the thrusters from the bike. Not only that, we get a fight between two riders and a gun battle resulting in one of them destroying the other. The only way the riders end up beating this thing is by having to resort to use one of Kykes' finishing moves that has to lock the opponent in place for them to actually destroy it. And that doesn't happen until the final quarter of the show. They treated a rider bike like a final boss. That is awesome. Moving on to W, we've got the Hard Boiler, and this is on the fact that it's so cool that they match the color for the rider's main form's dual hybrid nature. But also the front section to cover the handlebars is also shaped like the Double's base form. The Revolve Gary has Kamen clutch numerous times throughout the series, not just to dock it to switch out for other forms, but also be used to save out the riders out of a tense situation. Also, because W has three forms that match really well together, it also has the Hard Tubular that works best with the Heat Metal form, but also Hard Splasher for Luna Trigger, both good in the air since oxygen helps fire burn, and the Hard Splashers because Tornado's launchers work as well with the curve shots. Plus, I could talk about how Excel bike form is pretty cool, but instead, let's talk about how Excel merged with the Hard Tubular to cover himself in flames like a phoenix and ram into the opponent to destroy the Pterodopon source of power so Double could finish them off. And that's just awesome. Forze's machine Messigler is pretty solid for a rider machine, which is why it's the fourth one on my list. And I like how it's a simple bike that can just dock onto the power dizer to launch Forze into space. But you know what I love more than that? When Forze uses the board and wheel module, him just riding through the hallway is cool, but then he uses the winch switch to hook onto Meteor's bike for a ride, while Endless Play is listening as he's knocking down dustards. It's so damn fun, and I hope I'm not too lazy to find the images for it. So, technically, this is cheating for my number 5 list, but when I said rider bikes, I also meant rider machines. But, like, Trideron is so damn cool, and it's got easily one of the best vehicle and rider combination finishing attacks. having forms so wild and technic alongside the user is one thing, but then having it participate in speed drop, a move where it automatically does donuts around the opponent while drive bounces off it to rapidly kick the opponent to smithereens, is one of the coolest rider machines ever. But then there's the Ride Mocker and Ride Chaser, which already can combine into the Ride Crosser, fusing 2 bikes into one hell of a car. But then there's a triple speed drop where all their vehicles, they jump off their machines to kick the opponent together, and that's what makes these 3 join the list. Afterwards is my 6th choice from X8, and mostly just talking about Laser. It's really cool when there's a sentient bike, but the downside is that they need a physical form to really show off what they can do instead of just being in the bike form. And while Laser gets that later on, Laser Turbo is just cool as a final form. But remember Gem Shakuriki Sports and how it was easily able to beat the cap out of the Gamma, then the Riders and Ghost and X8, even before Level 3 was introduced? Yeah, Laser can do that with just a prototype gas shots using either bike, and a bike riding a bike to ram down someone else is just damn funny. The 7th choice is the Time Machines, and the Time Machines is one I know people are going to criticize because it's basically a giant mech and it's CGI, but you know what, I actually like it. Kamen Rider CGI gets a lot of flack because it feels unrealistic, but that's kind of the point. Kamen Rider combining practical and special effects has always been one of the best aspects of the genre, and the VFX crew always tries their best to make their animations fluid and dynamic in terms of choreography. It tends to match the fluid fight scenes. We've had battles between the Time Machines from Sogo and Gates, Horrors, Zio using the power of Oza's forms, and Auras versus Castle Doran, Zio and Gates, and then tag teaming, including Zio using Gates as a motorcycle, and that's just pretty cool. Number 8 goes to Revice's Predagenome, which isn't one I expect to be on people's lists and wasn't even on mine originally. But one, I like how it's one of Vice's forms, and you could argue that the 5's reference comes from the fact that the protagonist also uses a hover bike, and one's a more speed-faced form. But it's also pretty self-reliant given that it's got a pair of machine guns and Vice is able to make wing-shaped proton blades on the side to attack enemies with. Plus, the shot of Baird Rex Revice racing down with all 10 Vice stamps remixes coming down and combining attacks is so sick as we see just bring down the dead man's flying base, and that's just cool enough to make it on this list. Now, the last 2 come from the seasons before Gav came out, and I feel like with both of these, you all are gonna know which ones are because basically these are the ones that either everyone likes or everyone appreciates for what they're able to do with the story. So the first one is Geats. Yeah, I think, like, come on, what else needs to be said about the Boo Striker other than it's just so damn cool? Episode 1, it helps Geats as he uses it to destroy the Fortress Yamato. It's also a boosted form, allowing Buffett to use the Boo Striker form to defeat a Trump Yamato. And then there's a time Geats having the Boo Striker to finish off the Yamato Riders, made at Shishui Yamato, summoning the machine to completely decimate them in fever mode, with actual bike swings and swinging the whole machine into their body. But what's better than a bike that's part of a form, enhances the user's skills, and has fun fights? Easy. You just make them a sentient form. And since this is the 10th and final option, let's talk about Gotchard and Gold Dash. Yeah, Gold Dash is pretty awesome. While it technically has a personality that makes it just not a Pokemon, thanks to it being a physical prop, we actually see Hotaro using it a bit more than the recent Riders of Memory. It gives Hotaro the Gold Machiner as a sick powerful armor. It's got cool claws and shoulders for attacks. He can deflect and fire lightning. And even his wild form, a crab form good for grappling. Plus, out of Gotchard's kicks, it's definitely one of the coolest. Gold Mechaniker Fever has to go in wild mode to bind the enemy, before Gotchard turns it back to rider mode, and then smashes them with a brutal 1-foot heel drop kick. And it gets even better as with Rainbow Gotchard, he's able to use Gotcha Brothers to make Gold Mechaniker fight as their Gotchard forms, who not only helps Gotchard in his first battle with Gigas, which we'll get to, but then in the battle with Germain, we see them, Ant Wrestler, and Steam Hopper have the other 3 riders throw, lift, and kick their human friends up into the air to help them fly down and deliver a triple rider kick. Heck, going back to that battle with Gigas, they basically defend Hotaro while he and Apare Scables play offense as they form a massive tornado in wild form to bash Gigas and weaken him enough for Gotchard to leave him retreating helpless in rainbow form. And in an age where people argue rider machines aren't important, to have the second to last protagonist end up as a living sentient character who helps out the protagonist after one before was semi-sentient and a tool for character development, maybe rider bikes aren't as irrelevant as people say that they are. So yeah, rider machines and rider bikes are pretty awesome. It's a valid criticism that for a while it felt like Kamen Rider wasn't valuing the bikes as much, but going through this, it's really cool that the vehicles are still an active and fun part of the community. and the shows. It's generally awesome that an everyday source of transportation can be used as a source of heroism against evil and sinister forces in Kamen Rider. But tell me, what are your favorite Kamen Rider bikes, motorcycles, machines, or vehicles in the series? And let me know what's your favorite use of them in the series. That one I want to hear from everyone, since there are some ones I didn't talk about, because I know Kuga versus one of the ground gear on the bike is really iconic for the time period, and it still holds up to this day. So let me know, have a good day, stay bizarre, and I hope you found it interesting. Anyway, VIP Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.